Hello everyone, I welcome you all to Biology Lessons with Kalyani. Today we are going to cover three topics: what is cell, cell theory, and overview of cell. Coming to the introduction part, I'm sure that at least once in your lifetime you would have definitely wondered that what makes a living being different from a non-living, right? So it's a cell. Presence of a cell is that what makes a living being unique. Mane living beings ର uniqueness टा ହେଲା because of the presence of cell. Okay. Now depending on the number of cells present in an organism, it can be of two types: unicellular and multicellular. Uni mane hela one. Jodi gote cell achi, that is called as an unicellular organism. Jodi more than one cells achi, multi mane more. Multicellular mane hela more than one cells. Examples को देखिबा, जदि हमें एग्जांपल देखिबा तो यूनिसेलुलर ऑर्गेनिज्म रो एग्जांपल हैला यूबैक्टीरिया आउ आर्कीबैक्टीरिया. आउ मल्टीसेलुलर ऑर्गेनिजम्स पे we can take plants, animals, right? All of us are examples of multicellular organisms, right? Now if we talk about fungi re we have both unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular example कौन होगा? yeast होगा. Multicellular example तुम्हारा mushroom होगा. Mostly all the fungi are multicellular, right? But we have unicellular fungi also. Similarly, if we consider algae, it can be also unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular example hobo tamara diatoms he paribo, right? Tamara microalgae will be example of unicellular algae. A multicellular hele kelps hobo, brown algae hobo, right? Ebe next slide ko dekhiba. What is a cell? Okay. We have read it in previous classes also, in lower classes also, and we all know cell is the fundamental, structural and functional unit of all living organisms. What is the meaning of this? Structural mane kon? That cell ta hela good pura basic structure. Cell ta tamara tissues haba, tissues organ haba, organ system haba, organ system misiki organism haba. Tamane kona? Cells make up organism, make up an organism. It's the lowest level of organization, right? Hence it is called as fundamental structural unit. जेमती हमें घर करिला बेले इटा कौन? इटा सब जोड़ी करी हमें घर करूचु, ब्रिक्स जोड़ी की घर करूचु. Similarly organism टा सेल, बहुत सारा सेल को हमें एका संगरे नेले गोटे organism हमरा हबो. That's why it's a structural unit. Clear? एबे functional unit माने कौन? Functional unit माने हला it should be able to carry out all vital functions necessary for its survival. What are the vital functions which a cell has to perform? Definitely tamara ingestion hela, okay, food को digestion hela, digestion हवा परे तादर absorption hela, then excretion hela. एगुड़ा सबू कौन activities गुड़ा which is essential for the survival of a living being are carried out by a cell. Now the first time cell was coined by Robert Hooke in the year 1665, but he actually observed dead cell. को cell observe करथिले? Cork cells observe करथिले and compartment like structure observe करथिले under the microscope. But for the first time, live cell was observed by Antony von Leeuwenhoek, and Robert Brown discovered nucleus. Okay. एगुड़ा सब आमर important scientist name which we have to remember. एबे आमे जदि unicellular organisms देखिबा, unicellular organism रे कोन गोटिए cell थाए, तो that cell should be capable of independent existence. and perform essential functions of life. ता माने कोन माने without taking anybody's help the cell should be able to survive on itself. How? By that it should be able to perform the essential functions of life. Clear? Next slide को देखिबा, which is 8.2 cell theory. Ebe it all started with Matthias Claden in the year 1838. Who is he? He is a German botanist. Second कले ना से बहुत सारा plant cells को under the microscope observe कले. And से देखिया को पाइले that plants are composed of different kinds of cells. Okay, and these cells form tissues. Okay, the कौन conclude कले Claden's कले कि the plants are made up of cells. Okay, that was proposed by whom? Claden in the year 1838. About same time, Theodor Schwann in the year 1839, who is a German zoologist, he studied different types of animal cells and reported that cells had a thin outer layer which is today known as plasma membrane. 1839 रे Schwann कौन कले ना animal cells उपरे देखिले. He is a German zoologist, and what did he observe? That animal cells contain a plasma membrane. And he also found out that plant tissues, they contain something unique, which is cell wall, which is not found in the animal cells. Okay. So एठी जदि पचरा जीवो cell wall, presence of cell wall was found out by whom? Claden and Schwann hele confuse avani. Claden, even though he is a botanist, but presence of cell wall as a unique character of plant cell was found out by Schwann. It is important to note. Okay. तापरे Schwann आउ कौन कले ना से गोटे hypothesis देले. एटी theory नुह. He hypothesized that bodies of animals and plants, they are composed of cells and products of cell. तामने कौन? That plants or cells, plants or animals, they are both made up of cells and their products. Okay? तामने cells combine करिकी further structural organization करुथुबे, which is tissues. Okay, and they will be building up the structural organization of plants as well as animals. Okay, so आमी जदि कहिबा who gave cell theory, तो तार answer हबो cell theory was given by Claden and Schwann. Okay, but this theory has a limitation. कौन यार limitation थिला? This theory did not explain how new cells were formed. This is also important point. Okay, the limitations of cell theory by Claden and Schwann is that it failed to explain how cells are formed or how new cells are formed. Okay, तो कौन हैला तापरे आसिले तुमरो Rudolf Virchow in the year 1855. से कौन कहले ना, से explained that cells, new cells arise from the pre-existing cell in the process of cell division. And he termed a statement for it, omnis cellula e cellula. Okay, new cells arise from pre-existing cells. That's the meaning of it. Okay, so he modified the hypothesis of Claden and Schwann to give the cell theory a final shape. Okay, so ebe jo ame modified cell theory use करुचु, what it consists of 2 points. First hela jota Claden and Schwann deythile, that all the living organisms or plants and animals are made up of cells and products of cells. Okay, तापर second point कौन हैला? Second point हैला omnis cellula e cellula, or how the new cells arise, that is new cells arise from the pre-existing cells. जदि तुमको पचारे जीवा modified cell theory ताहले तुमको ए दुटा पॉइंट लिखिया को पड़िबो. पूरा सेल थियरी डिटेल रे हेले 1838 रे स्लेडन कोन कहितले लिखिबो 1839 रे शॉन कोन कहितले लिखिबो लिमिटेशन लिखिबो तापरे विर्चाउ इन द ईयर 1855 कोन कहितले लिखिबो फाइनली तुमे लिखिबो सेल थियरी modified or as understood today. I hope that's clear. Let's move on to the next slide. Third topic है हमारा an overview of cell. Okay. आमे समस्ते लोअर क्लासेस रे ए एक्सपेरिमेंट अनियन पील एक्सपेरिमेंट एंड ह्यूमन चीक सेल ऑब्जर्वेशन अंडर द माइक्रोस्कोप करूचु राइट. I remember that's the first experiment we did, right? So आमे या ऊपर टिके इठी कथा हवा. So if we observe an onion peel or human cheek cells under the microscope, what do we see? Onion cells आमे जदि देखिबा, it looks something like this under the microscope. Okay. So what would be the structure look like? We can see some cells, right? And we can see some distinct cell wall. Our mojira shaded portion ta ame dekhuchu. What is that? That is the cytoplasm. Ata upare gote thin lining ta ame dekhuchu. That is cell membrane. Eta more clear hoba jodi ame osmotic environment re गोटे अनियन पील को नबु तो कौन होगा साइटोप्लाज्म टा श्रिंक हे जिबा आउ हमें क्लियरली देखि परिबा मेम्ब्रेन टा टिके सेपरेटेड हे जिबा सेल वॉल टू. ओके, बट दिस इज हाउ वी ऑब्जर्व द अनियन सेल्स अंडर द माइक्रोस्कोप. ओके, onion cells, which is typical of plant cells, has a distinct cell wall. It has a distinct cell wall. Eta hela tara cell wall, right? It has a distinct cell wall and its outer band at its outer boundary, and just within it is a cell membrane. Inside kona? It's shaded dotted region ta kona? Tamara cell membrane. Now inside the jo shaded region, that is your cytoplasm. Similarly, hame human cheek cells bhi dekhile. But did we find cell wall here? No. When we observed under the microscope, it had one limiting layer, right? That is the outer membrane. Inside ame dekhilu kon tamara cytoplasm achi au gote darkly state or densely state nucleus bhi ame dekhiya ko pai, right? तो ame ya bhitaru cell structure bisare kon janilu. We got three important points: cell wall in case of plants, cell membrane in both plants and animals, densely state nucleus, and cytoplasm. These are the structures which are common, right? Which we can deduce from this diagram. Next slide re dekhiba. Inside each cell is a dense membrane bound structure called the nucleus. Ame janiche. What does the nucleus consist of? Nucleus contains the chromosomes, which in turn contains the genetic material or the DNA. Okay, so nucleus vitare chromosome achi, chromosome vitare amara genetic material or DNA achi. Now cells that have membrane bound nuclei are called as eukaryotic, whereas the cells that lack a membrane bound nucleus are called as prokaryote. Jodi tamara nucleus ta membrane ru bound heiki achi, what do we call it? We call it eukaryotic. And if it lacks a membrane bound nucleus, or the nucleus is lying free in the cytoplasm or naked, we call it prokaryotic nucleus, right? And the organism is called as prokaryotic organism. Clear? आ विषय में डिटेल रे नेक्स्ट क्लास रे पढ़िबा. ओके, now in both एबे टिके ओवरव्यू खाली देखु छै हमें. In both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, a semi-fluid matrix called the cytoplasm occupies the volume of the cell. एबे कौन हुए ना both prokaryotic और eukaryotic cells भितरे inside रे कौन अछि membrane bound है कि गोटे semi-fluid matrix अछि. Okay, what do we call that semi-fluid matrix? That semi-fluid matrix is called as cytoplasm. It occupies the volume of the cell. माने cell रे पूरा volume टा की occupy करूची? Cytoplasm occupy करूची, right? and it is the main arena of cellular activities in both plant and animal cells. या माने हेला both plant और animal cells भितरे जहाँ भी तुम्हारा cellular activity होची सेटा कोठी होची ना cytoplasm रे होची, and various chemical reactions occur in it which keeps the cell in living state. माने cell को alive होवा पाई जहाँ भी life processes दरकार biochemical reactions दरकार सेटा कोठी होची cytoplasm रे होची. And what is this cytoplasm? It is a semi-fluid matrix. Clear? Next slide को देखिबा. I hope it's clear. Now, besides the nucleus, the eukaryotic cells have other membrane-bound distinct structures. Eukaryotic cell भितरे nucleus छोड़ा अलगा भी structures अछंती, which is bound by a membrane. And those structures are called as organelles. Organelles कौन हैला? Organelles हैला eukaryotic cell भितरे nucleus को छाड़ी की अलगा भी structures which are bound by a membrane. कौन यार examples हे परिबो? Endoplasmic reticulum हे परिबो, Golgi complex हे परिबो, lysosomes हे परिबो, mitochondria, microbodies and vacuoles are some examples. Prokaryotes bhitere, but we don't see any such membrane bound organelles. So that is a main difference between the prokaryotic cell and an eukaryotic cell. That eukaryotic cell have membrane bound organelles while prokaryotic cells do not have any membrane bound organelles. आमे डिटेल रे प्रोकैरियोट और यूकैरियोट रो डिफरेंस टा टेबुलर फॉर्मेट रे नेक्स्ट क्लास रे देखिबा, बट एबे गोटे ओवरव्यू हिसाब रे आमे एटा को कवर करू नउचे. एठी गोटे इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग हैला कि यूकैरियोटिक और प्रोकैरियोटिक सेल भितरे गोटे ऑर्गेनेल कॉमन अछि. व्हाट इज इट? दैट इज राइबोसोम्स. Now ribosomes are non-membranous organelle which is found in both eukaryotic as well as prokaryotic cell. Jodi pachara jibo what is the common organelle found in both prokaryote and eukaryote, kon hobo answer taro? Ribosome hobo, right? Aw jodi pachara jibo does ribosome have membrane or not? Answer hobo ribosome is a non-membranous organelle. Correct? एबे देखिबा राइबोसोम्स टा तमरो प्रोकैरियोट रे तो खाली कोन साइटोप्लाज्म रे पाए जाए, यूकैरियोट रे भी साइटोप्लाज्म रे पाए जाए, बट इन एडिशन टू दैट विदिन अ यूकैरियोटिक सेल राइबोसोम्स आर आल्सो फाउंड इन other two organelles, that is chloroplast in case of plants and mitochondria and rough endoplasmic reticulum. क्लियर? तो राइबोसोम्स टा हमरो यूकैरियोट्स केस रे कोन हबो? साइटोप्लाज्म छोड़ा तमरो माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया, रफ एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम आउ प्लांट्स केस रे कोन एडिशनली क्लोरोप्लास्ट रे भी देखा जिवो, राइट? दैट्स व्हाई इट्स एन एग्जांपल ऑफ आल्सो ऑर्गेनेल विदिन ऑर्गेनेल. कोन क्लोरोप्लास्ट टा भी गोटे ऑर्गेनेल विदिन ऑर्गेनेल रा एग्जांपल हबो. माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया भी सेम, राइट? रफ एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम रे कोन बाहरे थाए, किंतु क्लोरोप्लास्ट रे आउ माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया रे भितरे तमरो राइबोसोम्स गुडा प्रेजेंट थाए. क्लियर? दैट्स व्हाई दे आर एग्जांपल्स ऑफ ऑर्गेनेल विदिन ऑर्गेनेल, राइट? एटा गोटे इंपोर्टेंट एमसीक्यू क्वेश्चन. नाउ animal cells contain another non-membrane bound organelle called as a centrosome which helps in cell division. एबे आउ गोटे non-membranous organelle भी animal cell रे देखा जाए, जोटा कि plant cell रे देखा जाए ना. हमें डिटेल ले तारा structure पढ़ीबू and तमरो मु ऑलरेडी पोस्ट कर देची सेटा, राइट? दैट स्ट्रक्चर इज कॉल्ड एज centrosome. Centrosomes रे डिटेल टा ऑलरेडी मोर पोस्टेड अछि, you guys can check it. So what is centrosome? Centrosome is a non-membranous organelle which is found only in animal cells and it helps in cell division. Clear? एबे देखो cells also vary greatly in their shape. They may be disc-like, polygonal, columnar, cuboid, thread-like or even irregular. तामाने कोण सेल्स जो थाए से माने बहुत वैरी करंती विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू देयर शेप. कोण कोण शेप हे परिबो हमर जदी हमें रेड ब्लड सेल्स देखिबा तार शेपटा हबो राउंड एंड बाइकॉनकेव. जदी हमें व्हाइट ब्लड सेल्स देखिबा तार शेपटा हबो तमर amoeboid. आ कॉलमनर एपिथेलियम जदी देखिबा हमर शेप यार केमती हबो long, narrow and तार न्यूक्लियस ता तमर बेस रे और बेसल न्यूक्लियस. right एबे जदी हमें नर्व सेल कंसीडर करिबा it has a branch structure. long and branch structure. branch structure हबा जगो कोन हबो सेटा सेंसरी इंफॉर्मेशन दबारे बहुत जल्दी हेल्प करिबो. right so the shape of the cell depends on what its function. Similarly जदि मैं ट्रैकिड देखिबा ट्रैकिड रे कोन गोटे elongated structure. Why elongated structure? Because it has to what help in uptake of water. That's why its structure is elongated. right एबे जदि हमें मेसोफिल्स देखिबा तादरे कोन राउंड एंड ओवल स्ट्रक्चर्स. मेसोफिल सेल्स गोरा तुमरो कोठी लीव्स रे देखा जाए. and what is the function? Photosynthesis. right ताले कोन हला the shape of the cells may vary according to the function they perform. I hope it is clear. next slide देखिबा आमे देखिले shape रो variation. एबे cells may also vary with respect to their size. देखो जदि आमे देखिबा माइकोप्लाज्मा ए टर्म्स गुड़ा बहुत ही इंपोर्टेंट एमसीक्यू रे एगुड़ा आसे पूरा मने रखि दबा को पड़िबो. माइकोप्लाज्मा हैला कोन स्मॉलेस्ट सेल तार लेंथ कोन 0.3 मिलीमीटर. सेम टा को जदि नैनोमीटर रे भी कन्वर्ट करी कि भी तुमको पचरा जाई पारे. राइट एबे जदि हमें बैक्टीरिया देखिबा टिपिकल बैक्टीरिया रा कोन 3 to 5 micrometer. okay and the largest isolated single cell is an egg of an ostrich. Human red blood cells jodi hame dekhiba it is 7 micrometer in diameter and the longest cell found in the organism is your nerve cells. right so a examples goda a data goda हमको मने रखि दबा को पड़िबो. it is lot of questions are frequently asked from this. okay एठी गोटे important points to remember मु करिछि तमरो ओवरव्यू हिसाब रे मने रखिबा पई बहुत इजी रहइबो डेट्स गोडा. ओके देखो इंपोर्टेंस जदि हमें डेट देखिबा 1665 रॉबर्ट हुक डिस्कवर्ड सेल इन कॉर्क सेल्स. डेड सेल्स देखिले लाइफ सेल्स एंटन वन ल्यूवेनहॉक डेट दिया हेनी सेट लागि लेखिनी एठी. रॉबर्ट ब्राउन डिस्कवर्ड न्यूक्लियस 1838 स्क्लेडन कौन देखिले प्लांट सेल्स देखिले इट कंपोज्ड plants are made up of cells which give rise to tissues. 1839 रे जदि हमें देखिबा स्क्वान देखिले कौन देखिले that animal cells have cell membrane, plant cells have cell wall. आ कौन hypothesis कले that plants and animals are made up of cells and their products. limitation कौन रहला cell theory रो limitation रहला that Sladen and Schwann जो देले आदरे से कहिले नी or tamara new cells how they are arising. That's the limitation of the cell theory. Did not discuss how new cells arise. Who corrected it? Rudolf Virchow in the year 1855. He corrected the limitation of cell theory. Constate kale omnicellular e-cellular. Who gave the final shape to the cell theory? Rudolf Virchow. okay who modified the cell theory? Rudolf Virchow. केमिति भी पचारले आंसर करिए आंसर टा तुम्हारा Rudolf Virchow होबो. modified cell theory कौन तुम्हारा organisms are made up of cells and their products. second point कौन omnicellular e-cellular or the new cells arise from pre-existing cells. right तो एमिति तुमको मने रखिया को पड़िबे तीनटा जो टॉपिक हैला ताहले तादरे ए पॉइंट्स गोडा और सेल स्ट्रक्चरल एंड फंक्शनल यूनिट ऑफ लाइफ ता छडा जो प्रीवियस स्लाइड रे म देखेली जो तमरो डेटा गोडा अछि लॉन्गेस्ट सेल तार डायमेंशन सब आरबीसी एगुड़ा सब तुमको मन रखा पड़ो शेप भी मन रखा पड़ो राइट that's all for today's class. I hope you had a you enjoyed the class, understood the concepts. If you liked it, please do like it and subscribe to my channel for more biology lessons. Thank you. That's all for today. Have a good night.